Okay, so Ryan and I, when we were watching the pay-per-view, we were kind of having a discussion.
I thought you were going to say how we were kind of spooning, but
no. These are the types of things you're not supposed to reveal on the podcast.
How we already do.
Ain't no fucking couch holding that much weight.
That's the fucking truth. The floor is lucky enough to hold that much weight. But
good thing Walter wasn't one.
I had kind of said, and this was before Adam Cole debuted, baby, that, and it's not exactly the same way, but Punk and Bryan kind of had a feel of almost like Hall and Nash, like going to WCW. Like, yes, it's different because they weren't Bryan just wasn't a couple months ago, but Punk hasn't been in the WWE for 7 years, but like it did kind of have that feel to it of these two big recognizable faces that have gone to this different company, but it was like who would be like when we're talking about like the NWO and what really kind of turned the tide, like who was the third man, and then Adam Cole debuts, and like I think we both looked at each other and was like, "There's your third man." So, and Ryan, there was something that you were kind of talking about that I was like, let's kind of hold this for the podcast. Like, what exactly, if you remember, because it's been a long few days, like what exactly was what you were talking about?
Yeah, what I was talking about is I didn't understand how Papa John's can sell a small pizza and just fold it in half and call it a goddamn papadilla.
Well, because that's it's like a quesadilla, but it's Papa John's pizza.
I don't really know what I don't remember. It was something about the nostalgia piece of it, I believe. Was that what it was? How
well, and I think
AEW clearly has the hot hand, clearly, and I think it goes to what Mick Foley was saying. But AEW, I think, wins at every turn here. We have AEW that can bring in somebody like Adam Cole with his Adam Cole gimmick and bring him and slide him right in. You can have somebody with a slight modification to his name, Bryan Danielson, which he wrestled for or as in Ring of Honor and prior to the WWE.
Sure.
You can bring in all of these talents that have that independent Ring of Honor name that you're familiar with. They bring them in as that name, whether they went through the WWE or not. So they have this name recognition that you're used to. The Viking Raiders, if they leave and go to AEW, they're going over as War Machine. You know them. God damn it. I barely remember what the fuck we talked about on Sunday, and you're giving sound effects for me. And I feel like I'm rambling.
People say shit in the middle of
Matt, nobody asked you. It's the fucking worst.
It was something kind of along the lines of like you.
Was I even close?
You had specifically mentioned AEW capturing the key demo.
Oh yeah, these are guys that we all watched when we were in the 7 years ago. That's us. That's our generation of wrestling fans. So to see CM Punk back, something I never thought we would see, I'm tuning in. I have a guy at work, we'll call him Lamps, who doesn't watch wrestling at all, but bought the pay-per-view because CM Punk is back.
Lance?
Lamps.
Like lights.
Lamps.
I thought we only had one.
Right.
Lamps.
Okay.
We only had one. One lamp.
We only had one.
He's a bright man.
But here's a guy who, just because he's heard of a name, CM Punk, a name that he 7 years ago, 10 years ago, remembers watching wrestling and hearing, oh, I like that CM Punk guy. He was the voice of the voiceless. He was like somebody I could believe in. Back. I'm going to tune in. $50 out of his hands like that because of that name recognition.
Yeah. And I mean, I have seen I have seen tweets from people that have said, you know, I haven't watched wrestling since CM Punk left WWE. You know, like there are people that said, you know, I fell out of love of wrestling over the last couple of years because it just hasn't been exciting to watch. I started watching AEW when Punk debuted, and I'm bought into it. Like,
I don't fully believe that. Oh, the day after CM Punk left, I stopped watching the WWE. That say you aged out of it a little bit, that's fine.
well,
I don't care
and maybe
for
it
got
wasn't
boring.
maybe it wasn't maybe it wasn't like, oh, I heard CM Punk didn't show up to Raw tonight, so I'm not watching. But like, you know, not long after that, when you kind of, you know, if you heard the podcast, like, because if you were a Punk fan, you heard the podcast, you heard his about his like lawsuits against the WWE and things like that, and you went, there's probably some people who are like, why am I going to support this fucking company if they're going to treat people like that? So there probably was some people that, yeah, I highly doubt it was like, oh, Punk didn't show up to Raw tonight, done. Like, but there are probably people who in the last 7.5 years have fallen out of it, and that may have been kind of a catalyst for the beginning of a change for people. But I'd say probably more so in the last couple of years, like as the WWE product has done what the WWE product has done, you know, that they just go, you know, maybe this just isn't for me. I mean, we've talked about those sort of things. So like if AEW brings in CM Punk and like Sting is there, and you know, now Bryan Danielson is there, and you have Adam Cole going back, like there is an excitement.
But you also have the wrestling where it's okay to say shit on TV and give the middle finger on TV, and it's a slightly more edgy product than what the WWE has become. Oh, I do kind of remember this. This has a bit of, and I'm not saying it's the Attitude Era, but it has a bit of attitude the way it is being presented that right now Raw and SmackDown doesn't have.
Right, like
except on Raw. Because Charlotte seemed a little bit more, she was crotch chopping and said, like, I'm going to beat your ass.
Yeah,
that seems very new.
That Nia Jax, Charlotte Flair, whatever's going on there, if it's a work, if it's a shoot, if it's a work shoot, I don't know what's going on, but that was one of the most, like last week it got a lot of attention. This week it was one of the most, it was maybe the most interesting part of Raw because I didn't know what the fuck I was watching.
Do you think we're going to get a Charlotte Eat It shirt?
I mean, probably not.
No, probably not. Okay.
Probably not. So. But I guess crazier things have happened, I suppose.
We've had some pretty bad shirts from the women's division in the past. There's no
there's been a lot. You know, there's been a lot of bad shirts division. On WWE side. There's also a lot of bad shirts on shop.aew/prowrestlingtees.com. There's a lot
where there is no bad shirts.
You just had to throw that one in
there's a lot of great ones on there too. Don't get me wrong. But like, there's just bad wrestling shirts going around, except on tpublic.com/users/3count Thursday.
What I don't like about the AEW shirts and Pro Wrestling Tees is just the material they use. It's so like, I don't even know the word to describe. It's like wearing sandpaper.
Yeah, they're definitely like basic bitch T-shirts with like just like the heaviest of like the heaviest of printing. And it also
they use like the scratchy Gildan shirts.
Yeah. It also takes you like 47 weeks to get the shirt after printing. After order. It's like I get it, you know, they got a lot of orders going on, but like it takes a while.
Tim, or Matt, you just ordered from Teespring though, right?
I did. Yes.
When was it, Sunday? And they've already shipped out?
You mean tpublic.com
tpublic.com/3count
Thursday.
Yeah, I placed the order on Sunday and I got the email that it would shipped on Tuesday. So
that's quick.
That's awesome.
Also, I don't know if I told you this, but I spent maybe an hour looking for our store on Teespring and could not find it. Finally went back in the group chat and I was like, that's it.
I did the same. I had to go back in the
studios. Was not proud of myself.
Mark, you were able to place an order on tpublic.com, right?
Well, it didn't go so well. Several times.
It worked great on my laptop. I don't know how you ordered, Matt. Laptop worked fine.
I used my phone and it was fine.
Okay.
So I
All
tried
right.
to use my phone.
Mark, did you call the 1-800 number?
Well, yeah. What were you using, Mark?
Well,
His
I sent
iPhone
a letter
4.
with a check.
Did you include the UPC symbols from the boxes of cereal?
I did. I got a discount.
Oh well, then I don't know.
But like, I put it like I thought it. I put it on the rundown sheet for like the YouTube and stuff, and I said like AEW is kind of like and I kind of tied it to the outsiders and the third man. Like AEW right now has a WW or WCW feel to it, but I mean that in like the best way possible. Like when WCW was on that rise, like at the start of the war, and I'm not implying that there's like a war thing, like because I don't think that's necessarily the case. But like when WCW was on that rise, it's like holy shit, I need to watch over here. I need to watch what's going on over here. Like that's what it feels like with AEW. Like in the last week, in our wrestling week, like starting Thursday running through Wednesday, there's one wrestling show that I watched from start to finish, and that was AEW Dynamite. And to me, it's been that way for weeks now. Like I'm still in for like I have Raw on the TV. I'm not really like I don't pay attention to it. Like I have to watch this. Like it's on, but
You
I'm
don't
not
have to though.
like you don't have to. But like it's on the TV, but I'm doing other things. Like if I have to go downstairs and do laundry, I don't care. If I'm working on something podcast related, I'm not necessarily paying attention to it. Dynamite, I'm paying attention to. SmackDown, I'll watch sometimes. If I don't, I catch the Hulu or the YouTube clips. I haven't watched NXT since Takeover because now I will watch it this coming week with the new NXT debuting. But like
In the way.
Dynamite is the show that gets my full attention, and because they've given me, they've told me this is you need to pay attention. This show's important. There's not like Raw's not doing that. NXT hasn't done that in a couple weeks. Like it's AEW. I mean, SmackDown's got Roman. I mean, but AEW's the show. I want to see what's happening there. 2020 and 2021 are fucking nuts. That's all I got.
Wild times. I mean, it almost feels car crash TV that you don't want to miss something. You don't want to look away. You don't want to miss it because you don't know what's going to happen. And you didn't know what was going to happen on Raw. But what happened on Raw ultimately has not a ton of bearing in the scheme of professional wrestling other than Bob Lashley now gets a tag team shot. Bob. And they broke up the match. They bookend the show. And I get there was the interference.
I really hate that.
I feel like that defeats the purpose of the whole turmoil match. You draw number one, it's unlucky you got to run the gauntlet. It's kind of the shit thing about being number one.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it didn't really matter. There he is.
Bobby!
Bobby! The one thing I would change about the naming convention of Punk and Danielson being Hall and Nash and Cole being the third man is I don't think that is the analogy that needs to be played here. The analogy is Punk and Danielson are Hulk and Randy Savage coming over from the WWF, which makes Adam Cole Lex Luger, first Nitro Everybody thought he was under contract with the WWF. He walks out on WCW television, and they like, why is he here? He's not supposed to be here. Hall and Nash and the NWO are yet to come.
Ooh.
Okay.
Who's going to be the next people who jump ship? And there's a name that's floating around now. There's a whole bunch of rumors going around about a person's contract who signed a 5-year deal 4.5 years ago. And come January 2022, there might be a person who just changed their Twitter nickname from first name, last name to just first name. And he might have tweeted something with coordinates that point to a national landmark somewhere in North or South Dakota with 4 people's heads on it. And if he comes,
that's your third time saying the word "come" in like a minute. I'm counting. I'm keeping track of it. That is your third "come."
What do you want me to say?
I don't know.
Goes. Why's Tim coming?
What do you want me to say?
I have a "come" counter over here. You are at 3.
Well,
keep going.
I can't help it.
No wonder Mrs. Tim's always smiling.
And so I think that is the more fair analogy. That's Hogan and Savage and Luger, with more to come. There's still the comparison is still there. It's the demographic. The fans of Hulk and Randy, they go and leave and go to WCW. WCW starts trending upwards. WCW operates out of the red. Mm-hmm. They make their first dollar. After that, they progress forward. To say though this isn't like seismic, I did research on. I did some. I don't want to say. I did research like some other people do research nowadays in 2021. I opened up Google and I typed in something and I pulled up an article, and it kind of makes sense. So I'm gonna read part of it. It's from whatculture.com about All Out 2021. It's expected to break, quote, all pay-per-view records. Someone had tweeted at Dave Meltzer, how many buys did All Out do? Meltzer reports, quote, awaiting a concise number, but definitely more than any non-WWE pay-per-view in 22 years and 4 months.
But I don't think there's any mystery to AEW is bigger than Impact / TNA or Ring of Honor or any of that. Well, I don't think that's a mystery.
22 years goes into WCW territory.
Oh, so it did better than Greed when the company was dying. Like how far back into?
Oh, give him the W, Jim.
Like 22 years, 4 months. That would have been May 2000.
When did WCW officially die?
March 2001.
So it'd be Greed and New Blood Rising.
Spin. I'm not denying that it's impressive. It is impressive. But that's such a weird way to put it. It is a weird way to put it. Like, yes, AEW is undeniably the biggest company besides the WWE since WCW wasn't bigger than WWE. That's not news, Dave.
Right, but then
but it's not fake either, though, Jim.
It's not.
That is a legitimate statistic. That is a real
legitimate statistic.
To play devil's advocate, I know that you don't mean it to come off like this, but it's almost sounding like AEW pulling the biggest non-WWE pay-per-view in 22 years isn't a big deal.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying at all. It is a big deal.
I can see where it can come off like that because you keep mentioning like, oh, well, of course it's bigger than Impact or the dying days of WCW. And you list reasons why it should instead of saying, hey, this is cool.
No, it is fantastic. It is cool. And like I've been saying, I watch AEW more loyally probably right now than I watch the WWE. But like,
did you know NWA is putting on pay-per-view?
but like saying
300 buys.
NWA World Champion for
saying
scorecards.
Like my grass is greener in July than it is in the months November, December, and January. Like, isn't news either? Like, isn't surprising news either? Like, is it impressive if my grass is green in July? Sure, I didn't kill it, but like, and I know I'm being overly obtuse or whatever. It is impressive, and it is something that AEW should 100% be proud of, and I think it's only going to get bigger. Like, I know that I think I saw today that AEW Dynamite this week had a higher demo number than Monday Night Raw. Like, I still don't, and maybe I don't understand the TV ratings business, but I don't know if that is like necessarily a fair comparison because they're on different nights. But in terms of Raw number, it was higher. A higher demo number for Dynamite than Raw this week. That is also significant. Like, that's also great for AEW.
I mean, the demo number is strictly targeting those advertisers, correct?
Kicker is fucking awful. Sorry.
What was that?
The Cowboys kicker is fucking terrible.
You know what? It happens, Jim.
It does.
And now the NFL is going to shut us down.
Probably. I did say the Cowboys. Devin said if a certain person goes to AEW, I think we're referring to Kevin Steen. He may not be watching WWE as much as he normally would.
I mean, how often is Kevin Steen on WWE?
I've never seen Kevin Steen on WWE. That's a great point, Matt. Mike says, side question. When we talk about the 4 signings of the last few weeks, has the signing of Malachi Black seemed kind of minor league? I wouldn't say minor league, but like, and I don't even want to necessarily say that like Malachi's been like feels forgotten because now he's getting his big rematch with Cody coming up at Arthur Ashe, but like Malachi Black went from being either like opening or closing the shows to, now it was Punk opened and why did Tim go disappear? And like, Brian closed this week. So like I said like the thing I find one of the most interesting things with the people who have been recently signed, the people who are rumored to have signed, and we're coming up on that near 3-year mark to the original AEW contracts. Who's going to re-sign? Who's not going to re-sign? And things like that. Like the very interesting things over the next 6 to 10 months or whatever or beyond is how all of these parts are going to fit in and how they're all going to be used quote unquote properly. Like, I'm very intrigued to see how they handle a roster with ever growing stars, like big stars. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's pushed the Malachi Black signing in the background, but I would certainly say that this makes the roster and roster management much more interesting.
I don't think you can compare anybody signing to CM Punk. It was 7 years in the making.
No.
Mariachi Black and Ruby Soho were both released from their contract. Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole's contracts expired, so there's some slight differences there. They weren't actually released. Mariachi Black was like right in the middle of a push coming back on SmackDown. It was very bizarre when he left. He wasn't at the height of his powers. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it's still a important part of the equation, but I don't think he fits into the outsiders talk.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Tim hit the nail on the head, calling each player who they were and then saying the NWO is still coming.
Yeah.
In the future. I think you're absolutely right. The problem is we saw what happened when the NWO got too big. Do we have to worry about that with the Elite?
No. Because if Cody is any sort of, well, let me put it this way. The mindset from 1996-97 and the mindset of 2021 feels a little different. When Hogan goes to WCW, he's trying to prove that he's still on top. When Savage leaves and goes to WCW, he's trying to prove that he can still wrestle. When Luger goes, Luger's a top star. Luger's an established, current day. Think about it. Luger was the winner of the Royal Rumble. You could say he main evented WrestleMania 10.
Double main event.
Yes. So you have that comparison. Now, though, I don't think Punk is clamoring for a spot. Punk is here to make things different and give back. And Bryan Danielson, to a certain degree, I feel like he's here because he just wants to wrestle people that he never thought he was going to be able to wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Adam
Do you
Cole,
think there's any bit of Punk that wants to stick it to the WWE?
I see.
Not that he'll ever say it.
CM Punk is in his Shawn Michaels found Jesus era of his career.
Okay.
Shawn breaks his back, comes back. He's found Christ. He's not about being the top guy. He's just here. I'm here to have good matches and hang out with my friends. And that's it. Punk's way too Punk's super humble right now. He's making amends for the stuff that he did 7 years ago where he took wrestling too seriously, kind of like Shawn Michaels did. And I think now he's just like, I'm in love with wrestling again, and I want to be at the place where, I can have the most fun doing it.
Yeah, and I mean, I would think I almost think that Punk just being there and the attention that it's drawn and the buzz around the company and I don't necessarily think I don't think Bryan is in AEW because Punk is there. And I don't think Cole is in AEW because Punk is there. And I don't think if Wyndham Rotunda comes to AEW, which I don't know that he is for sure, but if he does, I don't think those guys are necessarily going to AEW because Punk is there. But the more names that come to AEW, and the more that are WWE defectors, the guys, and this is where we'll start to blend towards the Mick Foley's comments. The more people that go from WWE to AEW, it's not necessarily because Punk is there, but the fact that it's happening, that is in a way kind of sticking it to WWE, don't you think? So Punk, whether he's there to stick it to WWE or wants to or not, it's happening anyhow. So that's
a good point.
I don't think he doesn't necessarily have to stick it to WWE. I don't think he was ever going there. I know he made a comment in an interview that he had discussions or something along those lines, but the WWE was playing games with him, in terms of signing him or what have you. And I'm I don't think Punk, even if he had any discussions, was ever going back to WWE. I don't believe that for 1 second. I think if he was returning to wrestling, it was going to be AEW or nowhere. I truly don't, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading that wrong, but I don't think he was ever had any intention on returning to WWE. I don't blame him.
Put yourself in his shoes.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
If the book was open and hey, I'll have a conversation, and the moment you feel like you're getting dicked around, I don't need it. I don't. Fine.
Like here's
Close
the deal.
The book.
Like here's the deal. If a company made me feel like shit, if a place of employment made me feel like shit, and there was a point in my life where I went, wow, that place really made me feel like shit and really brought me down. Like, I don't think there's a price that you could put on me, like put on it that would make me go back to that place. Because it's not especially for somebody like CM Punk. CM Punk doesn't need money from WWE. Like WWE could say, here's a blank check, put a number on it. That's not going to get him there. It's not about he doesn't need the money. I think he's doing just fine. So like if a company is that bad and is going to make you feel that bad, why would you go back there? Like, I don't think he was ever going to go back there. I certainly don't blame him.